The spirit of innovation is deeply ingrained in America, and Google is helping Americans innovate in ways both big and small. The Department of Defense is working with Google to help secure America's digital defense systems, from establishing cloud-based zero-trust solutions to deploying the latest AI technology. This is a new era of American innovation. Find out more at g.co/American innovation.
The kids are still at practice, and I have no idea what's for dinner.
You can get a rotisserie chicken and 2 sides for just $15 in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Who said that? Who's in my house? Don't play with me, because I'm not the one.
It's just your friendly Walmart announcer. This is a commercial.
Oh, okay. You were saying dinner for a family was just $15?
Yep, it'll be at your door by the time you get the kids home from practice. Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Subject to availability, restrictions, and fees apply.
Now that was a helpful commercial.
Hello and welcome. This is Hear Her Sports, the female athlete podcast for everyone who loves stories by and about women. I am your host, Elizabeth Emery. In each episode, I introduce a female athlete or a woman in the business of sport. I talk to women from all over and from lots of different sports. They share what they've learned from sport, tips that you and I can use in our own training and our lives. Today, I am talking to Narcisse Jordan, who is a player on the Chicago Tempest, one of the teams in the new Women's Elite Rugby, which started its inaugural season last month, March 2025. Women's Elite Rugby, or WER, is the first American professional women's 15s rugby league. The 6 teams are in Boston, Chicago, Denver, New York, the Bay Area, and Twin Cities, and feature 180 athletes. Narcisse explains the difference between rugby league and rugby union, why rugby is fantastic for girls, her rugby history, and coaching in the future. What she says about rugby for girls is wonderful. Just that is a great reason to listen to this episode. This episode is part of the Mom Athlete series that I'm so pleased to be building. I love hearing about the issues mom athletes face, what they are thinking about and having to deal with, and also hearing about all the varied ways women are figuring out how to make things work for themselves. Narcisse has tons to say about all that. She is the founder of the Instagram platform Mom You Play. She created Mom You Play to empower and uplift mothers in sports. Narcisse is committed to challenging stereotypes and highlighting the stories of women who balance motherhood and competitive sports. She is a mother of 2. Narcisse mentions mom guilt several times while also saying this is a conversation that never happens with father athletes. Her open discussion is very revealing. I so appreciate hearing Narcisse's stories and adding this episode to the other mom athlete episodes on Hear Her Sports. There are quite a few now. I love that there are more and more that show the range of ways women are figuring out how to be both a mom and an athlete. Find a list for those episodes on Narcisse's show notes page. A little note before we get going, I asked Narcisse when her team practice would start, and she hemmed and hawed and then said that was a hard question to answer because of some exciting changes coming up, but she couldn't talk about it. I edited all of that out so you won't hear it, but she and I got on the phone again a month later to talk about what was up. That is at the end. It is all good stuff and part of the general momentum we are experiencing in women's sports. Well, let's now meet rugby player Narcisse Jordan. Hi, Narcisse. It's great to talk to you. I'm just so happy you're here. Thank you for being on Hear Her Sports. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this.
You are a rugby player and you play in rugby league.
Yes.
And could you describe that for us? Because it's not the rugby that we watched on the Olympics. And, you know, like as I was preparing to talk to you, there just are so many different kinds of rugby. So
Yes.
I think it would be helpful if we had sort of an intro.
Yes, so basically I've grown up playing rugby union, and that is like the style that everyone saw in the Olympics, but with more numbers. So there's rugby 15s and there's rugby 7s, but it's all classified under as rugby union and the style that is played. I'm considered like a dual athlete, and with rugby league, that's very new in the United States for women, and it's very different. I feel like it's more set up for American football, closer to American football because of, the resetting and, having to hurry up and score within 6 phases. And if you don't score within those 6 phases, you have to turn over the ball to the other team. But it still has the rugby essence of non-stopping. And what I mean by that is like in union, you always want to keep possession, right? And there's no breaks. There's no, oh my God, I got tackled and now I have to reset and we take an extra 15 to 30 seconds trying to restart the next phase. But that's not that's not how rugby league is played. It's kind of like you get tackled, 2 people, 3 people, or 4 people are like in the huddle, and then like you get up and you replay the ball, and then you go. That could take less than like 10 seconds,
Yeah, I was watching it, and it looked like, so the ball would stop and somebody, the team that had the ball
hmm
would get tackled, but they still had the ball and they would sort of pass it under them.
Yes, and that's the restart of the phase, or
Got
that's
it.
like the
Okay.
next going, like basically the beginning of the next phase.
And in rugby union, what would happen if
A
in that
rugby
same?
union, if you get tackled, you want 2 people at least from your team to create this ruck over
Mhm.
you to protect the ball. And the scrum half, which we call it the scrum half, who kind of distributes the ball from the tackled area, they come and hurry up and pass the ball out, and it restarts a different phase. But the thing about with union and you having to keep possession, the other opposing team that's playing defense, they can come and just kind of like, I guess, ruck over or um push the 2 people who are trying to protect the ball. They can just come up and push those 2 people back, and then they can get the ball. Where in league you can't do that. You have to kind of like go back to 10 meters, have 2 markers that are kind of like defending these 2 different areas on both sides. But yeah, it's a lot of rules and different things. Like they're both the same, but very, very much different from each other.
And how does that impact sort of the athlete? I mean, it looked very fast.
hmm
League looked very fast.
Yes, it is very fast. And I know the biggest difference for me from like union, like whenever we're going back on defense, you go back 5 meters, right? At least 5 meters from where the tackle breakdown is happening. In league, every tackle breakdown before each phase, if you're not those 2 markers that's standing there where the breakdown is, you are going back 10 meters every single time. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. That's a lot of meters to, go back and then have to come back up off the line after that. It's just basically doing a shuttle almost every time. So for an athlete, it's very, I feel, that's why the game goes super fast, especially if you do have the ball in league. And you have to be really strategic in how you um, utilize those phases, because again, you only get 6 phases to um, be able to get the chance to score. So you have to be a little bit more strategic. Where in union, yeah, you need to be strategic, but there's a lot of room and opportunity to like win possession. So that kind of like, I guess in hindsight could cover it. I actually been thinking about doing a little bit more videos, doing like a comparison to both rugby union and rugby league.
Oh, that would be
Just to,
helpful.
yeah,
Yeah.
just to
Yeah.
give like a little bit of information, because rugby union, like when you're talking about like a full 15s, that means that there's 15 people on each team, so there's 30 people on the field at one time. Um, and that's a lot of bodies to be looking at, especially for the sirs, which is the refs, to look at and cover. And in rugby league, there's only 13 players. So trying to understand that. And then I know in rugby union, everybody's really used to like this scrum, which is like this big huddle that happens off of a penalty called a knock on. So like if the ball is passed forward, or if you drop the ball and it drops in front of you, like to reset, I guess, the play, you go into this thing called a scrum, and it's 8 against 8, and they're pushing against each other, trying to win the possession of the ball once the ball is like fed into like this little tiny hole. And
That to me is the iconic rugby image.
yes, it is. And rugby league, we have uncontested scrums, but it just helps restart, I guess, the phase of like, I guess, taking out those players. But there's no contested scrums. Like, we're not in rugby league, we're not pushing back and forth with each other. We're just kind of like folded in, and then the ball is fed in, and you kind of like, make some magic happen off of that. So
How did you start playing rugby league?
I had just got back from the UK, from playing union. And the following year, this was like going into COVID, and I feel like Florida was the only place that was actually playing rugby during like the whole shutdown, because I was in Florida. And we had to take a lot of protocols, in order to be able to play, like do testing every day before, training and games, and if like immediate symptoms of COVID. So that season, I was kind of like, losing hope and wanting to like just, get out of it. And I got offered like an opportunity to try league. And we had like the first ever women's rugby league tournament, or I think just a rugby league tournament in general in the United States. And it was hosted in Tampa, Florida. And there was a lot of people who did not know what this game was about. Like, no one knew what a lot of people did not know what rugby league was. I feel like there was a lot of new teams. We were all just trying to like test it out, understanding a different strategy of this game. And that was in 2021 when I started playing league. And then there was a camp to make a selection for the USA Women's Rugby League team, and that was hosted in Chicago. And it was an upcoming game to have like the first ever national women's rugby league game going against Canada in Canada. And I was selected. So it was, a nice way to kind of like regain, I guess, my confidence. But um, it was also another humbling experience, I should say. But yeah, and that's how I came to league. It was just an opportunity that came, I guess, at the right time that I needed it, and it was lovely.
And you mentioned a couple times that you were in Europe, in
Yeah.
England, and you were there playing rugby
hmm
for the U.S.
No, not for the U.S. Again, another opportunity rose. I was talking to this guy, Di Morgan, I think was his last name, but he came up to me, and he was just, you know, like, hey, this opportunity, I think if you go over there, they'll train you, and like, you have a lot of potential. And I was like, well, I'm a mom. Like, I just can't leave, so it did. The idea sounded very far-fetched, because I was limiting myself based off of like, how my life was set up at that point in time. But the catch was that I had to go back to school, and I think that's what sounded, daunting. And I was like, well, I don't want to go back to school. But we looked at that as an opportunity. I was like, oh, I can get my master's, because they do have um, a master's in fine art. So I ended up taking a chance, and I went over there, and I was playing for Cardiff Metro University, and that was in Cardiff, Wales. So initially I was in Wales playing, and then I got an opportunity to just go and kind of see and just kind of like fill in on a roster for this pro team, and it was Worcester Warriors at the time. And I didn't know how big of a opportunity it was until like people were like telling me like, no, this is like the prim. And I was like, I don't understand. I don't understand what that means. I was like, yeah, it's the prim, like, and then it wasn't until after, um, I was like, oh, it's like these big, names that were in England on the England rugby team. And England is probably one of the best teams in the world for rugby, for
Sure. Yeah.
women's,
Yeah.
and up there with New Zealand, and
That's
I
so
was,
cool.
yeah, and it's just like me just being, oblivious to all of it. And I'm just like, taking it day by day. I kind of asked the coach because I knew it was just for me to just fill in to say that they needed another prop, which is a position. And they just need somebody to fill in that. And I was like, well, can I come back and continue training or. He's like, yeah, sure. And I was like, oh, that was easy. Okay. So it
Well, that's
just kind
great.
of like happened from there.
Yeah. And had you played rugby as a kid?
No, I never played rugby as a kid ever.
Huh.
I always played football.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay. Yeah.
I'll always go outside and play football. I was a bit of a town boy, however
Hmm.
we want to call that. But I didn't discover rugby until I got to college. And I feel
Hmm.
like that's how most of us who play rugby in the States, we don't find out until it's college. And because honestly, rugby is such a what's the word we like to call it? Posh. It's such a posh sport. And what I mean by that, like you'll find rugby in a lot of the very upper, like class type of environments at those high schools. Like, for an example, like St. Joe's, I think Lakewood has a team, but granted, I know it's a public school, but it's not as popular in the demand in like the schools that I went to. And I think honestly, it would be very beneficial. Uh,
Oh, I would have
I
loved to
think it
have
would be
played
a very
rugby.
beneficial pathway for
Yeah.
young women. But I know like the competitor with that would be American football. So, and now with flag football starting up in the Olympics, I feel like it's gonna be 10 times harder just to get, the interest going. But I mean, like as long as we can try, and I'm hoping like down the road, like that can be a plan for me is to put rugby in a lot of inner city schools in Cleveland. Cause I just honestly feel like this. If I would have found this sport younger, like who knows, because
Why
this
do
was,
you why did you I don't know, why did you relate to it so much and why do you think it would be so positive for girls? I mean, I
because,
agree with you certainly, but
yeah,
yeah.
because, I'm a big advocate for, embodying strength. And I feel like for me, I found such a voice of who I am because, I played basketball, I played, I tried out volleyball, didn't like it. I tried out all the things that like, is typically in the schools, track and field, basketball, volleyball. Wasn't too good at softball. And none of those really like made me feel like I was achieving at something. It was like I was like that kid that was on the team just to kind of like be a part of something, but it wasn't meaningful because for me, track and field is still kind of like very separate because you have the sprinters, but then within the sprinters, you have the 100-meter sprinters, and then you have the 400-meter sprinters, and then you have the distance runners, and they're all kind of like cookie. And then it's just like with basketball, I felt like everyone was doing, every, little girl was doing basketball, to kind of like, uh, be, like I'm doing a sport and this is the cool, like kind of aggression sport. But a lot of, I know they say like boys have aggression, but a lot of girls have a lot of aggression. And the expectation about that we need to be very cutesy and very demure, that is not a realistic expectation
I
at
love that you said
all.
that. Oh my god, that's great.
Yeah, because it's just like, it's not a realistic expectation at all. And then it's just like, it's another sport that you can literally just get the aggression out and the physicality out and feel strong and feel empowered. And it's a sport also for all different body types.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that was like very key for me. Like at the social level too, like if you just want to play a social, like you could just go out there and have fun. And because it's like, hey, if you're struggling with your weight about being bigger, go play rugby. Because I guess what? They're going to make you feel like you are a queen because they need you. They need that extra body. They need that strength to just boulder over these girls who are just like, and then like the smaller girls, hey, we need you to be like fast or just like run. And then like that moment when they do take down a person that's bigger than them, seeing that is just like amazing. And then like it's like a boost of confidence, a boost of adrenaline, and just like all these dopamines go off, and it just helps with self-esteem. So I just feel like, with it being into the schools and why it's so important is because it I feel like it will help with a lot of those different factors of what a lot of little girls and teenagers, struggle with. They struggle with confidence, they struggle with, body image, struggle with finding like an actual community. Not to say that like, there's not going to be any arguments or fights happening. People are competitive. Like that's just in everyone's nature. But I just feel like this is just like another opportunity to be like, oh, we can work together, because this is probably one of the sports where you have to like really, really work as a team. It can't be just one person. Um, it can't be just one person that does it all on the field. Again, there's 15, or and with rugby league, there's 13 people, like that's a lot of people on the field. It's something about going on the pitch and playing with these women who come from so many different backgrounds, come from so many different adversities, and then playing at like a higher level too, and understanding like the sacrifices that a lot of us are putting in. It's just a beautiful sentiment, and it's kind of like, you know, I'm doing a lot for, especially to my body, but I love this sport and I love you as my teammate so much that like I'm willing to put my body on the line and do
Yeah,
this.
I mean, that's amazing. It's so amazing. And I love everything that you said about bringing it to the schools. All of that stuff is so important.
Yeah.
So, what kind of training are you doing now? And, talk more about the rugby league team that you're on and sort of the organization and what your personal goals are.
Yeah.
That was like a billion question. I'm
It's
sorry.
okay. I'm gonna try to answer them.
Yeah.
Well, right now I'm in the off season. I'm training, probably doing like, based off of my schedule, I'm doing like 2-a-days where I'm doing both the conditioning and the strength portion all in one day. I'm
And you're
training.
doing this alone, right?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
doing either
Okay.
alone or a couple of my teammates that still like that are here. We're training, and together sometimes whenever our work schedules can like allow us to train together.
Sure.
But other than that, like, just training by myself, and I'm training probably about like 5 times out of the week.
Hmm.
Um, and the off season, like there's no really realistic rugby training. So, but you want to just kind of like make sure you're working on your weaknesses. So if you feel like you need to be strong,
Ooh,
you're
what are
gonna be
your
doing.
weaknesses?
Oh, me is endurance. I'm gonna let you know that right now. Running.
Okay.
Like running is mine. So I've been really doing a lot of conditioning, and I make sure I just kind of like do my conditioning first, just so that I am making sure that that's top priority, and then I'm just kind of like grinding it through when it comes to the strength portion. But yes, that would be definitely my weakness. But yeah, no one really likes running. If you do, kudos to you. Kudos to you.
Well, you've got to have somebody on the team who likes to run.
Uh, you know, I don't come around those too many all the time. There's probably one.
All right.
It's probably one. Like probably yeah, it's probably one. But I have never heard someone like, yeah, let's go do a Bronco. I'm like, absolutely not. Like, no. I will tell you right now, no one on rugby really likes to run.
That's interesting. So
Yeah.
when do you start with team practices?
Team practices start in February. There's a lot of big rugby things coming up, but for rugby league, there is another international game, and it's going to happen actually in Las Vegas, and it's USA versus Greece,
Oh,
and
fun. Wow.
it's going to be the first time the USA goes up against Greece, which is good, and I think Greece is ranked number 8 in the rugby league world. USA were ranked, I think, 13 or 12. So playing against them and, not to sound, competitive, but if we beat them, we can go up a little bit in the ranks. So that's a little bit exciting. So
Yeah.
I have until like the end of February for that game. So just basically getting ready and training for that. But for rugby union, practices start up in February. Yeah, February.
Got it.
So like but with the US, like it's just kind of like here and there. But the actual rugby league season starts over the summer, and that's when I travel back and forth to Tampa a lot, because there's still not an established USARL rugby league team here in the Midwest. So traveling and playing for Tampa is like, it's always fun. I mean, it's Florida, so I don't mind taking a
Right.
nice little trip down there.
So I'm glad you talked about going down to Tampa, because my immediate thought was one of the things that we're going to be talking about today is you're a mom and an athlete.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, wow, like you're traveling back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about Mom You Play and why you started that. And
Yeah. Mom You Play, wow. This is something I've wanted to start since I think 2021. Actually, 2022 is when the idea popped up in my head. I just really wanted to advocate for, again, women. And not only just women, but women who have like so much on their plate. So much. Like, we're working, we have to be responsible for other human beings outside of this sport. And I feel like a lot of us use rugby as a safe place for us to have some type of identity outside of being a mom. But when it comes to Mom You Play, I wanted that to just be prevalent for everyone, and not just women rugby players, but any woman who plays a sport or who is trying to get into some type of like hobby. Because number
yeah.
one, like to me, like you have to still have some type of self when you become a mother. I became a mom at the age of 21. I'm 30. So my rugby career was put on a halt. And, when I finally, like, I think it was my senior year of college, I was like, you know what? Like, I'm just gonna stop it. Like, I'm not doing anything else with it. Like the vision wasn't there anymore. And I was like, my focus needs to just be on my kids. And that's how it was. Like I had my son graduated school. Then my husband joined the military. We ended up in Tampa. I'm pregnant again with my second child. I was just in full mom mode, and the times where my husband would deploy, I would go back home, but in my head, like I'm just like, there's something more I need to be doing with my life, I'm like, there has to be something more outside of me just being a mother. So I started getting back into, I guess like fitness. Like I actually was running at this time. I started running. I ended up, going to a yoga teacher course. I ended up doing CrossFit, and then along the way, after the 3 years of not playing, I was just online and I was like, I wonder if they do have a rugby team here. And I looked it up and they did. And so that's when I got back into rugby. But it was just the purpose of like understanding like the practices, the demands of having to make sure that you train. And it depends on if what type of athlete you want to be, right? There is and I name it from this, there's social, there's amateur, and then there's high level. Like, and you kind of dictate what type of athlete you want to be, but I feel like it's like what you want to be and like what you can be, and that's two different statements. It's something. And I just wanted to create Mommy Plays so a lot of women can see like, hey, she's doing it. Like, so why can't I?
Yeah.
Or just get like certain like advice or tips to like how to like do things or without feeling guilty. Because I feel like a lot of us will feel guilty for, you know, especially when it's the end season and, you got to go to training like twice a week. Depending on how your setup is, like, you got to go to training twice a week if you want to start on the Saturday's game. So not only are you, depending on what level you're playing at, so like for me playing at a high level, I'm training 5 times out of the week. If it's in season, I'm going to training twice a week. It's like late at night. And in Tampa, it was crazy because traffic was so bad that like it would take me like an hour to just get to practice. So I have to leave an hour before practice started. And then I probably won't get back home until like 9:30, 10 o'clock, you know. Then Saturday, I think the longest games time frames of me having to travel on a Saturday would be like 3 hours. So it's a lot of time taken away from family. And then to add, I guess in my eyes, to kind of add more stuff on because I was just only doing one style of rugby at that time. Now I'm doing 2. So so it was just a lot and I felt a lot of guilt, but at the same time, I was very confident in knowing that if I give this passion, my kids are going to be able to see that. And when they get older, they're going to be able to, I guess, I don't know. Like, it's not that I'm trying to be a cool mom, but I want them to realize, like, that I don't want them to give up on something just because. I don't want them to ever feel like when things happen in their life that kind of, like, steer you off of their path, it is okay. You can just rally up and get back on it. And I feel like just teaching my kids resilience and adaptability is very important, especially in today's world, because like, you can't control the things that happen. And with me playing, especially playing this sport, I also, with me like living away from family, I built such a community, and having a community of moms would be great, And sometimes it did feel like a lot of people did not understand me and my situation. There's always a joke when a teammate or a friend calls me and I'm like in the background talking to one of my kids. It's like, oh my God, I keep forgetting you're a mom. I was like, I feel like everyone forgets that. I was like, I feel like because, when I'm not doing rugby and I'm not doing things, like I am at home with my kids. I am here in and shout out to like my husband for just being very, very, very supportive of me in this journey. And every time I talk to him about like, Mom, you play, like he's just like, that's so cool. And then like we kind of like talk about all the other moms, but I mean, in particular, it was just one teammate of mine's. It was the first national game against Canada for USA or Rugby League. I was like, "Look at us." Like, it was, like, 4 of us,
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
as
Yeah.
moms.
Yeah.
Yeah, at this national stage, and I just thought it was such an emotional, historical moment. I was like, "This is not celebrated enough, and it needs to be." And that's where the idea popped up, but then I got so emotional about it and saying, like, it was a definite yes when my teammate, her name is China, she was like, yeah, I'm missing my son's birthday to be here.
Wow.
And I
Yeah.
was like, like, right then and there, I understood how she felt. The thing is, to me too, like with her son being so young, I feel like ages 4 and under, it's easier to kind of like, get away with that. And that's not to say that in a bad way. It's just the truth because they don't remember a lot of stuff. But we remember it and we remember how we felt. And it's not a good feeling. At the same time, I was like, but China, guess what? You made history today. And you get to put that on your wall, and your children get to see that. And they get to see how incredible you are. And you created a space for them, And I just feel like that's just like a beautiful sentiment. But people just don't really understand how much as mothers we are doing to sacrifice when we are trying to put ourselves first.
It seems to me like it's a conflict. Like
Yes.
there's this conflict of, like you do want to be a mom and be there all the time, but you also can't sacrifice yourself.
Yes. And I feel like in order for me to be a great mom and a great just everything, I have to be happy with I have to be happy, and not wonder about the what ifs and spend life in regret. And this isn't just from me saying this. This is from also the voices of other women I have always encountered and spoken to about this. This is a normal feeling, and I feel like it should be normalized and easy to kind of just say. But I feel like even if you aren't a mom, right? If you're just a person, you have to take time for yourself. Like even if you're just like, working at a job and you feel like you're doing something for someone else all of the time, you have to find things for you. And at the same time, I'm not saying to like, go off the walls now. Just do things that realistically fit in your world. So when you're looking at playing sports or doing a hobby, like if that looks like you going to your closest rec center and playing pickup basketball every Tuesday, hey, that's you putting aside time for yourself and doing something that you love or doing something that you used to like to do. If you have room and opportunity to, play at a semi-pro level, do it. Do not let anything stop you from doing the things that you love to do. And I feel like that's what I'm like such a big advocate for, but especially for women who are moms, because there's such a different guilt when it comes to like, stepping away. And there's also a different perspective and outlook on how people view us as mothers and saying like we should be here and there or should be doing this and should be doing that. And sometimes it's looked at as selfish, but I like I said, I am a big advocate for self-love and finding time for yourself.
I'm generalizing here, but women are not great at taking time for themselves.
I mean, so like, and that's why I'm like, it's like it's a good thing to like really try and normalize that. And
Yeah.
for me, rugby has just been such a big part of my identity for the past like, for now, I want to say that since 2019,
Hmm.
especially once it gotten back into my life, like for like my children are here, I was rugby too, but I also was struggling to find my voice in other aspects, but I didn't really know who I was. But now I can definitely say since 2019, rugby has just been my whole identity.
So how are you managing that conflict of mom athlete?
No, I take it one day at a time. Because the difference between two, like a lot of moms that I know, there's probably like only two mothers that I know that have kids in the same age gap that I do. Like my son is 9 and my daughter's 7, and that's a different age, mental age phase. That's not your 5 and 4-year-old. that's them entering. I feel like every 3 years, my kids enter a different phase that I thought I nailed down, but then they're going into a whole different phase of their life. So like, I'm like, okay, here we go. Like seeing this, like this past year, for an example, my son, when he got to 4th grade, he stopped calling me mommy. And I know there's like different memes and like different like videos that, make fun of that phase, but it really hurt me. And I like looked at him. I was like, Hunter, and he's just like, what? And I was like, why are you not calling me mommy? And he was like, he started laughing awkwardly. He's like, I don't know. I was like, Hunter, you just woke up yesterday and called me mommy. Now today I'm mom. So it literally took me a while to get used to. And every time he would call me mom, I cringed. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I cringed in the inside. But I got used to it and started accepting this is where he is now, and how I'm balancing, being an athlete and being a mom. And I it's, the setting of boundaries. That's one thing. So I ended up setting up boundaries and just being present and when my kids are at right now. And what I mean by that is, if I have a schedule, I have to stick to that. If I'm with my kids and like say my friends who don't have kids, they're like, can we do this? No. I'm sorry. Like if I give you a time and you can't make that time or something, then I have to say no. And it's one of those things where you'll think that is so little, but it's sometimes like one of those things are kind of like bigger in everybody else's lives, but is even big for me because I used to be like, to me, in hindsight, like a people's pleaser. And two, on top of that, I felt like I had to be everywhere all at once, all at one time. And I said no, because I can't, within that, I'm spreading myself way too thin. And then the time and energy that I could be giving to my kids, like I'm giving it to something that's just like, I don't need to do it. And that's why I use like all my rugby tours and events. That's when I like see all my friends. And then that's when I'm like, hey guys, and then, we're chatting and, catching up and stuff. But when it comes to really balancing, I feel like you have to set very strong boundaries. You have to be able to communicate with your kids. To me, schedules are very, very important when it comes to help balancing everything. And then again, taking time for myself, which we're still trying to get good at and perfect. But like you said, we're not good at it.
How are your kids how have your kids reacted to you being away, like regularly doing the training?
Mm-hmm.
Are they old enough to, I don't know, not like it or like it?
Yeah,
Or
they don't like it at all. That I can tell you, and this is just, and you know what? This is me being vulnerable. This is me being honest, especially for whoever listens to this. This is the things that you're gonna go through if you do decide to, take this route of your sports life, or your sports career. They don't like it, but I believe in. I know this is probably not a ideal thing, especially for um like people like my grandmother's generation, compromising. I kind of do a compromising thing with them. I say, okay, guys, if I go here, do here, don't worry, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z. Like when I come back, like there's always a give and take. What I do with my kids, because I know they don't like it, and I know it doesn't feel good. I know in the next couple of months we're gonna be going through a long little struggle. But they don't like it, and that's just like the honest truth about it. But how we approach it and how we handle it, again, I communicate with my kids and kind of get them to understand, or try to get them to understand like what I'm doing. And when I do come back into town, it's kind of weird because it's kind of like an out of sight, out of mind thing. They'll tell me that, oh my God, like, I don't like that you're doing this, especially my daughter. My daughter is like very vocal about how she feels.
she's the one that should love that you're doing this.
But I can see that it does have effect on her because, she plays rugby now. Like,
Awesome.
yeah, she plays flag rugby for Rookie Rugby that's here in Cleveland, and she loves it. And, she also loves swimming, but whenever she plays rugby, she's just like, Mom, you're so good at it. And I was like, you're great at it. And she's like, it's not like you. I was like, Athena, you're going to be 10 times better than me if you stick to this. Like, I'm not even
Yeah, I mean,
joking.
she's 7.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. She's 7. I'm like, if I start, it's like, start now. Oh my
I'm jealous.
gosh. Like, so I'm just like, we're gonna get this. We're gonna get this. But yeah, you would think that she would be but no, she just is like, no, I just want my mommy. I want her home. But when I'm gone and I come back, she'll tell me about the amazing time she had. Then I get confused. So it's like, that's why I'm just like, it's an out of sight, out of mind thing. But the first initial like of me leaving, I just like let them know, like, I'm coming back. And that's just where it's at. Like, I
Yeah.
kind of just really communicate with them, and an incentive, I just make sure I spend as much time with them in the times that I do have with them. And that's being present. Like, my daughter, she loves coloring. We color together. We do art together. My son, he likes to just show me YouTube videos of what he learned, or talk about math, or play board games, and we just do that together. Or even if it's just me watching an anime show with him, like, I just try to do the stuff that they like to do, and to show that, like, I'm meeting them where they're at, you know?
Well, talk about what Mom You Play actually is, because it's an Instagram page. And,
Yes.
like, what are your goals for that? And, like, what are you doing?
So with Mommy Play, so basically it's an Instagram platform, and I'm doing, like, celebrating moms, empowering moms who are playing in these sports. And I know I have an upcoming live with a mom the second week of the end of January. And it's just kind of like how me and you were talking about, the balances of being a mom and being an athlete, and, just giving advice as I can, and the celebrating of mothers. So, like, I'm doing like a mom of the month each month. And the way I want to do that is that I want people to kind of like engage with that, and kind of like, you know, nominate or share stories about mothers who are doing all of the things in their communities, in their sports, and trying to just kind of like raise awareness of, like, hey, these are moms who are, kick ass and doing all of the things that we don't deem possible or realistic for mothers.
I think that's so awesome. I think that mother athlete is definitely, or the awareness of mother athlete is definitely growing. And there certainly are more moms who are continuing to be an athlete. But as you pointed out, there's definitely a need for something like this. And I would think that just knowing that there is a community out there, that there are other people who are, struggling with the same the same conflict and the
Yeah,
same time management issues would
because
be really important.
it's crazy because, it doesn't matter how many people like my post on Instagram, or, there are a lot of other people who are very judgmental of what I do,
Mm,
because I'm not a
that sucks.
it does suck. It sucks, but it also empowers me more to keep doing what I'm doing, because at the end of the day, like, it's understanding a lane. And not to compare my situation to this at all, but there's a show called Lioness, and it hosts Zoe Zandela. And I just got done watching the series, and I couldn't have felt more empowered. But she was in the military, and she's like one of those contractors that do all these things to save America when America's sleeping, basically. And the amount of times she's away from home, and is giving insight of, like, all the things she's struggling with when she does go home, because her daughter just turned 13, which that's a scary age for any mother. Honestly, when your kids, it doesn't matter, boy, girl, when your kid is going into preteen phase, a very scary age because we all know how we were when we were teenagers, and it's just like now you have to like kind of navigate and guide that. But if you're not home and you're away, it's hard to do that. So just kind of like seeing that, but then also, seeing the support from the husband, but then also seeing, his side of breaking down. It just has like all these different complexities and conversations for everybody, and it kind of represents these different aspects of things that we deem normal, not normal. It's not normal for like the wife or the mom to be away for 6 months at a time and then come back, and you don't know if she's gonna be alive or not, depending because of her job. And then the father is not the stay at home father, but he's the sole parent because he's a doctor, but he's also the one that comes home, picks up the kids, and cooks, and do all the things that normally what a mom should be doing. So it's
But I
like
mean, sorry to interrupt, but would we be having the same conversation if the role was reversed?
yeah, you hit the nail on the head. You hit the nail on the head, because every time I try to make the comparison of like, I'm like, what I'm doing is basically what, basketball players and stuff like that. The only
Right.
difference is, unfortunately, since I'm a woman and the sport that I play isn't as popular, I don't get paid. Like, and it's sad because it's just like, well, I'm supposed to stop, doing this because of that situation. A lot of people will say yes, because I'm not taking care of my home, but I am, in a way that it needs to be taken care of. It doesn't make me less of a mother. And again, that's probably that's one of the top things of what I wanted to like really say, is that you're not less of a parent just because you're doing something that you love to do.
That's so important. Thank you.
As
Yeah.
long as you're not, harming anyone, or harming, your kids in any way, because your kids are going to go through things regardless. We can't prevent that. The way, and I say it because that's the way like the world is like, you're not home, and da 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 da, like, it's just like all these like what ifs and hypotheticals, and it's just like, well, if my brain did that, I wouldn't succeed in anything I did,
Right.
you know? So, and then also understanding too that, and this is something that when I was like on the journey of trying to figure out what exactly I wanted to um, explain, is that I am very aware that a lot of us have 24 hours but don't have the same 24 hours. Very aware of that.
What
And
does that mean?
so what I mean by that, like, yes, I am training, right? There is a person that is probably on the same high level that I am, but they don't have the chance to do 2 workouts in a day. Sometimes they don't even have a chance to even do an hour workout, so they have to probably drop down to 45 minutes. So maybe their strength and endurance might take a little bit longer to get to.
Mm, yeah.
Or maybe they don't have, they're probably single. They don't have another partner in the household to help out with their kids. Maybe they don't have a babysitter. Like that's what I mean by like everybody has a different life, or like a different set of 24 hours of what goes on in their day, to why they can't probably accomplish something and the same goals or the same task that I could, that deem it possible for me to be in the position that I am in now. Um, so that's also another big thing that I want to always talk about on my platforms, and understanding those things, because as much as like, and I feel like this is where I just want the differences for my platform with Mom You Play to be different, is that I don't want to be spitballing all these things that you could and should be doing when we don't understand other people's stories. And I love listening to other people's stories and listening to like what made them be the person that they are, because that's the type of athlete you are at the end of the day too. Also, that's the type of mother you are. Just to hear how a person goes about their day. I think that's why I like those little vlogs on YouTube, like here's a day in the life of what I'm doing. I love watching those because it's no, I'm very curious. Like you're all of these things. Like I would love to see a day in your life and see what you do. Like I think that's so interesting. And I think the more we normalize mom athletes, and I feel like it would encourage more women to start doing or getting back into doing stuff that they love, because that's probably one of the biggest things. Like even talking to people who don't play sports but just want to get back into the gym, for themselves, that's probably like one of the biggest things, is that they just don't know how to do it because of like they're so schedule strict on what's going on. We don't know anybody's like mental health. They could be going through stuff like behind closed doors to where they can't get into that gym. But what are some things? There's always a thing on how to fix and how to and do this and do that, but there's never just like a clear solution. And my goal and my hope is that I can help give clear and honest solutions to these type of problems.
Well, I think oftentimes, we see, like I could see you doing what you're doing, being an athlete and a mom, and think that, oh, she has no problem. She's just worked it out.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. Like as you pointed out, there are all these circumstances and you are having this conflict, and it's just nice. I mean, for me, it's just nice to know that you are having that conflict and you've figured out a way to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
You're giving the opportunity for people who follow you to see that it is possible.
Yes, and that's the thing that I want people to see. I'm like, it is possible for you, especially like I'm having these conversations with my teammates, and like they're telling me and I'm like, all right, let's figure something out. Like, but then they'll hit me with I'm going through this, or my child has this, or my child got sick, and that, like all of this stuff is real.
Yeah.
This stuff is happening. Like, and that's why I said like creating a community that understands you. That's what I mean by that. For the mom who can't make 2 practices a week, but she can run a beautiful Bronco time whenever you need her to, because she just couldn't make it to practice that Tuesday.
It's always going to come down to the running.
Because that's what they love. The coaches love you running. They love making you run, man. Because number one thing about rugby is that you have to have grit. You have to have grit. And honestly, eventually I do want to be a coach, but if you're a person,
I'm glad.
Yeah, I think what the next endeavors and next ventures that I'm doing, it's for me to set myself up to be a coach. And I'm not trying to be a head coach or anything. I want to be an assistant coach. I think the hardest part for me right now is trying to figure out what age group I would want to, like whether that's youth or high school or just women's, like what age group do I feel like I have the mental capacity to deal with, because it's a big difference. It's a really big difference, but for sure, like I would always 100% choose the athlete that shows the most grit out there on the field. And what that just means to me, because I've seen so many women who are moms that I know what's going on behind closed doors, and when they show up on that field, they show up when it's time. And I applaud it, and I think it's just wonderful. And
I bet you are a good example for the people on your team who don't have kids. Like, oh, it's possible.
I really struggle with compliments. I do. I just want to come and go to practice, chill, be goofy. I like to call myself like a vibe curator. So it was actually a teammate that came up to me and said that to me, and I was like, oh, thank you.
That's so nice.
And it's just like, I just don't know how to take that like statement sometimes. But
Well, clearly you're making a difference. That's awesome.
I appreciate that because that's all I want to do. I just want people to just kind of understand that we deserve a chance too. And then the number one thing too is like I never want my kids to feel like they were ever a burden to me. I don't
Absolutely.
I don't want my kids to ever feel like they're a burden. So I'm like, see, that's why I'm doing it now. That's why
Well,
I'm
I mean,
still
as
doing
you've
it.
also pointed out, a strong mom is a strong family,
Mm-hmm.
you're just going to make everybody stronger.
And that's the goal right there,
Narcisse, our original conversation happened in January, and you revealed there was something exciting happening for you and for women's rugby, but you couldn't share it then. So we're back, and it is late February to hear that news. What can you tell us now?
Yes, so it's so exciting. Basically, the United States has finally created the first ever professional women's rugby league teams, and I was selected for one of them. And I am currently in Chicago, about to start the season and doing preseason with Chicago Tempest women's rugby.
That is
Professional.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what does that mean for women's rugby?
This just means a lot. Like a lot of women are able to now play at a very high level. Not saying that there wasn't a high level before, because, like I said, I think previously in the other podcasts, there was like the WPL, which was considered more semi-pro for women. But this is also giving other people from other countries, other opportunities to come over and play at a high level in the States, and for the women who are in the States to be shown at like a more professional level. Like we are getting, strength and conditioning, we have a trainer, and just being able to have like the facilities, you know, be able to cater to us. I know like now since it is considered professional, like I know travel and hold accommodations is like paid for. We don't have to come out of pocket anymore, and that was kind of like the biggest expense when it did come to traveling for rugby. And it's just honestly genuine opportunities to just be seen on this level. So the WER definitely has like a lot of things in store for us that I don't even really know just yet, but just like what I'm just explaining to you is all I know. But I know this is going to be a great season. It's a great debut to do it, because I know the Women's World Cup is coming up. I think it starts in August or September time frame. And then I think the United States, they will be hosting the Women's World Cup in 2028 for rugby.
This sounds like it's going to completely just raise the level of rugby in the U.S.
Yes, it is definitely going to raise it. And I'm just so happy to be able to be a part of it for like the first year, for the first ever season for it. So
It also sounds like you're getting paid. Is that true?
No. We're not getting paid yet.
All right, next step.
I wish. Yes, that's the next step. Oh, we were hoping that was going to be it, but we just need more. We need more eyes on it. We need more viewers. We need more support. So, hopefully, people get the tickets, buy the merch, and it can be a successful season. So.
Well, I'm going to definitely include all the information about where people can watch, what the teams are, all of that stuff in the show notes. So you'll help me put that together, I'm sure.
Yes.
Good. So you're in Chicago right now, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And what's that been like?
So I've been here for about a week. First week was a little bit stressful, I'm not going to lie, because my family did not come with me, because the season is only 3 months, and I did not want to uproot my children from their, current, comfortable, stable, at home situation, and I just decided to do that. But the stressor was trying to make sure that everybody was on like the same page while I'm trying to navigate this new space for myself and get on the schedule and things of that nature. So um, it was a bit stressful, but now like it's a little bit dialed down because I got a lot of stuff figured out. So
Well, that's good. Yeah, I mean, the main thrust of our conversation was, sort of you being a model for moms. So this is really interesting now that you're taking this next step.
yeah, and at the end of the day, what I want people to understand that I'm still am being a mom. Like, like I'm still, calling them once they get out of school or they're calling me, making sure I talk to them before they go to bed. I'm asking the questions like, did you do this? Did you do that? I have like already in my schedule for the days that I will be flying back home or driving back home because Chicago's not that far from Cleveland. Um, so I feel like the biggest thing now, this journey is going to look a little different, and it's going to be very interesting because this situation is unique, and not a lot of people do get this opportunity. So I want to be as transparent in this journey when talking about motherhood and balancing being an athlete. So yeah, 100% for sure going to be a lot of balancing when it comes to this.
Well, it's interesting for me because I don't have kids, but I've been recently talking to more moms about it. And it seems to me that we are in such early days of having athletes who are also mom.
Hmm.
So like you're still having to figure it out.
Yeah, it's definitely me still having to figure it out for sure. But the thing where this isn't new to me because I did travel to the UK, and I did like go over there for my masters, and then ended up playing semi-pro rugby, like tethering back and forth. And I was away from my kids then, but they were a lot younger. I think the
Right.
challenge now that is different is that they're a lot older. So just, recognizing of me actually being away. Like, not to say that they didn't recognize it then, they just didn't know how to process it. And understanding that, like, having the different mom guilt stage is very different. And just like how they view and perspective of when they were younger was different, the way that I'm handling, the guilt and things of that nature is very different as well. I've already had the hard conversations with my daughter and my son, had the hard conversation with, my husband, but they're being very supportive. They're coming up here, I think, the second game that we have, because the first three games we do have will be home here in Chicago. So they'll be here, so be supporting, and made them like little cute little shirts to wear whenever I have a game. And so just, being very communicative with the kiddos and just like my family. I'm very privileged and very blessed to definitely have like a big support system that supports me in my journey on this, because this is a big moment, and not just for me. Like, this is always bigger than me. This is just a bigger moment for just women's rugby, and I'm so thankful and grateful to be able to be a part of it.
It's nice that you can articulate that,
Yeah.
and explain that to your kids. I think that's good. So you talked about the guilt, the mom guilt. Like, what are
Mhm.
you thinking about in terms, like, what are some of the thoughts that are going through your head in that
Oh
line?
man, like you're a horrible mom, really. Let's just start. You're a horrible mother for leaving your kids to go pursue this dream. And the thing is, it's just like it's not a dream anymore. So I'm like tethering, like fighting myself with that concept that this is not a dream anymore. This is actually reality. This is actually happening. And having the same, type of arguments with certain people who just don't understand how big this moment is for me or just for women's sports. But when it comes back to motherhood, it's just, is it worth it? Um, that is the biggest question that I feel like as a mom that I've had and even if I was at home, just traveling for a weekend, like what if I get hurt? What if, all of this stuff, like anything can happen, so it's just always the question that like stays in the back of my mind, like, is it worth it? And then there's instances where it's going to feel very hard at times, and where it's going to feel very um there's a word that I want to say because I don't want to use this word, but I'll think of it if I come back. But it's going to be very overwhelming and very, like, tries to put me in like a depressive state. But the thing is, like, I need the emotional and mental state to be good in order to be a good player and be the player that I need to be out here to make it worth it. But that's where the mom guilt is definitely coming from. Was this opportunity worth, leaving the kids for just this amount of time? And one of the things I had to keep reassuring them is that, like, hey, it's not going to be that long. This is very short term. This is just for a season. And, who knows, if you come out here, you might like Chicago and be like, Mommy, I want to move to Chicago now. Like, so that's the next dream,
Right.
but we'll cross that bridge when it gets there. But I mean, the biggest decision was I didn't want to move them out of their comfort zone, because I'm like, what if I didn't like Chicago? And then I just moved them. So it was
Right.
kind of
Sure.
like making sure that everything was okay here before making a big decision, making a big family decision. Um, but that part of this, if it's worth it, am I selfish? Um,
Moms are always selfish. There's no way
I
around that,
know,
no
right?
matter what they do.
Honestly, and but the thing that, like, I know that that's a thing, but I feel like I shouldn't have to have the conversation of comparing myself to a male sport world versus a female sport. Like, we should already know that, like, the women in female sports do not get the same benefits as a male sport.
Hmm.
But at the same time, this situation or this opportunity is yet still valued as such, if that makes sense. Yeah, I'm not getting paid millions of dollars and, having like the best, like, flights to get to where I need to go. Like, I'm not reaping those benefits, but the feeling is still the same. Like, I'm still able to have the title of being a professional athlete. And I feel like that should be enough respect to respect my decision, because if it was like that, if it was flashy, I feel like it would be a different conversation.
Yeah.
If I was a man, going to go play in a professional setting like how I am now, the conversation would be different. So I think the thing that kind of like helps me get out of that negative mind space is just like understanding my value and understanding the value of this opportunity. Um,
Well,
but
we
yeah,
also have to remember that it's part of a continuum.
yeah,
It will get to be professional and flashy, we hope, but it
yes.
doesn't immediately get there, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's the hard thing, trying to kind of like wrap around some people's brains
Right,
when
right.
it comes to this, because it's not flashy right now. But what I'm dealing with is that, like, it's not as flashy, and it's like the vision isn't there unless they see it. Um, but gotta ignore it. Gotta keep moving on. Like, I made the decision. I'm committed to it. Um, but yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about all the good stuff. I mean, I know you've only been there for a week, but you said that there's trainers and whatnot. So what have practices been like, and what have you been doing? And tell me all the good, cool stuff.
Yeah, so with it being, still in the colder months, we've been practicing at an indoor facility in the city, and it's been nice to just meet so many different people. I know a lot of them because we either played with each other with the other style of rugby league, and then also played against one another. But meeting new people that I've never met before, and we have a I have a teammate that's from Australia, and I think she played on a football team, Australian flag football team. So I thought that was pretty cool, and seeing everybody's like different skill sets and things like that. But Brian, who's our head coach, he's a wonderful coach. He's been nothing but very genuine and very transparent and very honest, but also very reassuring and supportive. uh, I think that this, like, for this first week, he's just kind of like testing and seeing our limits. We've been doing circuits and then going over different skills and foundational, fundamental things just to see where our skill levels at, see where our mental is at, but also still trying to not only just get to know us as a player, but get to know us like outside of just what rugby is, because what we do outside definitely dictates what we're going to be doing on the field. So definitely getting an understanding of that for sure. And I love like this, we had this weekend to kind of like do team bonding after training. Some of the girls went and ate in Chinatown, and then some people, like I moved into my like one bedroom studio place that I have like the month to month, and like got to bond with some of the girls, and then we went to go get tacos from the food here too. Just exploring the city with teammates. So that's just been really fun as well. Just exploring the city with teammates, going to these little pockets of neighborhoods and exploring Chicago. Chicago is so like, there's so much to do here that like I know I'm not going to be able to fit it in within the next 3 months. So
Yeah, I mean, 3 months is not a long period of time.
it's not a long time. Like, and that sounds like it's gonna go by fast. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to soak in all these moments, but that's been the cool thing, is really making more connections. And then like one of the players that I've been playing against, but now it's my teammate. I didn't even know she was a mother, and I found out, and I was just like, this is so cool. So then just, recognizing too that like I'm not alone in what I'm feeling. I might be alone in like the aspect of like my kids are not visibly here, but I have a little community to go talk to when I'm probably feeling down, or um I guess the mom guilt.
Yeah. You sound energized with all
Yeah,
this.
I am. I'm very energized because it's just like taking this opportunity and like trying to squeeze as much out as I'm gonna get from it. Because like I said, like I'm a learner of, or a student of life, and I'm just like learning so much, and I'm like excited to learn from, not just my teammates, but like also learn about the city of Chicago as well, and just kind of explore that a little bit more, and just like how I'm navigating that um, as I'm like going, like doing this rugby, and then also just like, balancing being a mom.
Yeah. Well, I am super excited for you. I'm also super excited to follow along with rugby because, as we talked about last time, I think rugby is an amazing sport, and I certainly wish I had discovered it when I was young. So we will all be following you, and thanks for giving us the update. Do you have anything you want to end with?
Oh, no, other than make sure you support not just women's rugby, but all women's sports. Just keep supporting. That's how we grow, and that's how we stay alive. And yeah, that's basically it.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
A big thank you to Narcisse. I am so pleased to have met her via our mutual friend, Jen. Thank you so much, Jen, for thinking we would get along, because that is very true. Narcisse lives in Cleveland, and we met for coffee a while back. Her enthusiasm was joyous and fun to be around. So great in these times. I also appreciated her professionalism and her dedication to bettering herself. In our episode, you heard Narcisse talking about wanting to beat Greece in an upcoming match. That match was in early March, and win they did, 46-0. Congrats to Narcisse and to the rest of the team. Please check out the show notes to find a list of other Mom Athlete episodes. While you are there, sign up for our newsletter. Thank you to our affiliate partner, Do Yoga With Me. If you are looking for yoga you can do at home, Do Yoga With Me is the best that I know. Support Hear Her Sports by joining Do Yoga With Me classes from the support tab on our website at hearhersports.com/support. Working with affiliate partners is difficult as a podcast because you are listening and there is really no link to click as you do that. So you go to your phone or your computer a little bit later, and you can just as easily go directly to the Do Yoga With Me website, and no one will know you heard about the site right here. But if you would like to support Hear Her Sports podcast and everything that we do, I'd appreciate it if you access the Do Yoga With Me website from Hear Her Sports. There is also a link in the show notes page of this episode. And that's it for this week. I will see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Running should be simple. Just put on your shoes and go. And yet, when you try to learn about how to get better at it, especially as you age, you're confronted with conflicting advice, complicated workouts, and confusing nutrition trends that just won't work for you. On The Planted Runner, I'll share exactly how to run faster, longer, and feel great doing it at any age because you don't have time to waste. I'm Coach Claire Bartholic, and I went from not running at all in my late 30s to finishing a marathon in 2:58 at age 42, all on a plant-based diet. I've helped hundreds of runners achieve new personal records well into their 60s and even 70s with science-backed training, plant-based nutrition, and proven mental strength techniques. Each episode of The Planted Runner is like a private coaching session on the run, where you'll learn from me and the guests I interview. You'll get actionable lessons to help you become a better runner every week and reach goals that you never thought possible. Whether you're training for your first 5K or your 50th marathon, take along the Planted Runner on your next run. Let me show you how your best running is still ahead of you.
Are you ready to dive into the thrilling world of paddle tennis? Join me, your host, Minter Dial, on the Joy of Paddle podcast, where we serve up exclusive stories from pro players, industry insiders, and passionate enthusiasts. From valuable tips to hilarious anecdotes, we're bringing you the best of paddle twice a month. Whether you're a seasoned player or new to the sport, there's something for everyone on the Joy of Paddle. Subscribe now and join the paddle revolution.